evening, I'm Ces Orenia Drilon. The impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte is done, at least this week. It ended with a cross-examination of the prosecution's first witness. As was yesterday's, there were lots of objections. Here's the wrap.
But there are no affidavits of the journalists from the media outlets, correct? My question is not found there, Your Honor.
Oh, Your Honor, please.
My question is
Your
not
Honor.
found there.
Okay, wait. The counsel is confronting the witness with a document, and he propounded questions, and then he asked another question, and he took the document away. What's
Your
the
Honor,
purpose of that? Objection, Your Honor, please.
My question is plain, Your Honor.
Counsels, please. Witness, I think the witness understood the question. Mr. Calilong, you may answer if you understand the question.
January 30, 2025 is a date earlier than February 10, 2025, correct?
Yes.
The witness being asked which
Your Honor,
date,
ask and
came
answer.
first. I mean, relevance, Your Honor. Relevance.
Counsel, you already sound frustrated, counsel. In regard to this line of questioning by the
I'm very
counsel,
patient,
will
Your Honor,
respond.
please. I'm very patient.
Day 3 of Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial did not end on a quiet note. There were lots of back and forth with the first witness to take the stand in the historic proceedings. And giving us the rundown is mobile journalist Merymon Reyes. Merymon, first off, inungkat ng depensa kung saan nag-training ng photo and video authentication ang witness na si NBI Senior Agent Mark Calilong. Bakit daw ito kinakailangan?
Ses, kahapon, nung pinakilala ng prosecution panel, itong si NBI agent John Mark Calilong, sinasabi niya nga raw na nitong 2021, NBI na siya, na-assign siya doon sa cybercrime security, nagkaroon siya ng training pagdating sa digital forensics and such. Pero kanina naman sa cross-examination na pinangunahan na mula sa defense ni Attorney Carlo Narvasa, tinatanong niya, kine-question niya itong training na nakuha ni Calilong. Pinresenta niya doon mga dokumento, to be specific, yung isa pa nga yung Articles of Martyrship ng kumpanya na MaxCore Interventures Co. At sinasabi itong kumpanya ay forensic software provider na hinandle daw yung kanyang training. Kine-question ni Narvasa kanina kung ano ba itong naging training niya, yung background niya sa digital forensics, kung yung business daw nitong kumpanya na to ay procurement ng mga equipment na may kinalaman doon sa forensics. Ang sinasabi naman kanina ni Calilong, parte raw ng procurement service yung training na meron siya. And yung ilan pa sa pinapatakbo dito na tanong, yung gusto pa nga ni Narvasa nung una, yes or no lang muna daw yung isasagot ni Calilong na ino-object naman ng prosecution, ng prosecution na ino-overrule naman. Kasi ang sinasabi ni Presiding Officer Senator Chis Escudero, alam naman na raw ng NBI agent kung paano sumagot, lalo't nakasalang na raw siya sa maraming pagdinig, lalong-lalo sa House Committee of Justice. Ses.
Sunod na inusisa naman, Merymon, ang naging threat sa Chief of Staff ni Vice President Sara Duterte na si Zuleika Lopez. Ano ang kinahihinatnan nito?
Says kung kahapon yung prosecution doon sa 2 hours and 26 minutes na online press briefing noong November 23, 2024 ni Vice President Sara Duterte, pinakita kahapon yung parts kung saan binitiwan ni VP Sara yung umano'y pagbabanta sa kanila Pangulong Bongbong Marcos, First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos, kay former House Speaker Martin Romualdez na may nakausap na raw siya na papatay dito kung siya raw mismo ay mapapatay. Kanina naman, ang pinresenta ng defense ay bahagi ng briefing na yan, ng online na video na yan, pero ang nagsasalita, itong Chief of Staff ni VP Sara na si Yusek Zuleika Lopez. During that time, dito naririnig na sinasabi ni Lopez na ililipat na raw siya sa Women's Correctional Facility. Yung time kasi na yan, nasa custody siya ng House of Representatives dahil cited siya for contempt dahil nga sa isang pagdinig sa House. She questioned her transfer and insisted na hindi raw siya kriminal, na meron daw threat sa buhay niya. And yung sinasabi naman ng defense, chinek daw ba netong NBI agent kung yung transcript niya ay faithful din sa sinabi doon sa video. Balikan lang natin yung bahagi sa trial kanina.
Did you investigate the threats to Attorney Zuleika's life?
We need a complaint for this one. That's why
Yes or no, sir? Did you investigate?
we did not, because there's
You
no
did not.
complaint.
Okay, thank you. Complainant is still the NBI Cybercrime Division.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. The supposed offended parties in this case would be President Bongbong Marcos,
Yes, sir.
the First Lady Lisa Marcos,
Yes, sir.
the former Speaker of the House Martin Romualdez.
Yes, sir.
Did President Marcos appear before the NBI during its investigation?
No, sir.
Did the First Lady Lisa Marcos appear before the NBI during its investigation?
No, sir.
Did the former Speaker Martin Romualdez appear before the NBI during its investigation?
No, sir.
Did President Marcos file any criminal complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte?
He made a statement.
Did the President file any criminal complaint against the Vice President?
I have no personal knowledge, sir.
Did the First Lady Lisa Araneta Marcos file any criminal complaint against VP Sara?
I have no personal knowledge.
How about the Speaker Martin Romualdez? Did he file any criminal complaint against VP Sara as a result of the November 23, 2024 online press conference?
I have no personal knowledge.
Mary Mon, throughout this exchange, naging mainit din ang balitaktakan sa yes or no na estilo ng pagpapasagot ng depensa. Ano bang naging ruling ng impeachment court dito?
Ses, yan nga yung kanina, bago mag-start yung cross-examination ni Attorney Narvasa dito sa NBI agent, ang sabi niya muna, sagutin lang daw ng yes or no yung kanya mga katanungan unless sasabihin na otherwise pwedeng hindi yes or no ang isagot mo. Nung una, nagpe-presenta muna ng mga dokumento, parang pinapa-confirm niya, nakikita niya daw ba ito ni Kalilong, nakita niya raw ba yung pangalan ng kumpanya, yung website pinakita rin, yung nilalaman nito. Pero nilalabanan naman niya, hinaharang yan, nag-o-object dyan ang prosecution at sinasabi walang katuturan daw yung ganitong questioning. Dapat din daw may karapatan, wala daw sa rules ng korte na pipigilan at yes or no lang daw ang magiging kasagutan ng isang tumetestigo. Pero ang sinabi naman ni Presiding Officer Chis Escudero, alam naman na raw kung paano sumagot itong si Kalilong at kung sakali pwede niya naman daw i-qualify yung kasagutan niya. At kung sakali naman daw sa nasa records, pwede naman daw tanggalin ng defense yung hindi sagot na angkop doon sa kanilang tinatanong. So nagpatuloy naman yung questioning na ganyan, pero hindi nawawala yung objection mula sa prosecution. Ses.
Una, sinabi ng prosecution na magpe-present sila ng 2 witness ngayong linggo, pero si Kalilong lamang ang naiharap nila. Ano ang paliwanag ng prosecution dito?
Ses, kanina, maaga kasing natapos yung cross-examination at hindi nagkaroon ng redirect examination mula sa part ng prosecution. Nagsabi ngayon itong prosec na hindi na lang muna nila ipepresent si Attorney Jeremy Lotong. Ito rin ay NBI Regional Director na nakalista na dapat ngayon sana sunod na ipepresenta. Next week na lang daw nila siya ipepresenta ulit at ang gagawin daw kasi nila, gagamitin nila ng maayos yung 11 trial days na allotted para sa unang article of impeachment na sinalang sa trial. Ito nga yung 4th article of impeachment, yung alleged threats ni VP Sara sa First Family at kay former House Speaker Romualdez. Pero ang nilinaw din naman kanina, ang sunod naman ng ilang ipepresent next week ay si NBI Regional Director Jeremy Lotok sa Lunes, July 13. Sunod naman si Attorney Zulaika Lopez na pinag-issuehan na ng subpoena, pinagpapatawag na itong si Lopez. Sa Tuesday naman siya ipepresenta. Habang ito namang mula sa House of Representatives sa si Captain Belinda Bello, Wednesday next week na siya ipepresenta. So, yan yung ilan sa naging malinaw naman ngayon. And ang nasabi naman kanina ni Impeachment Court Spokesperson Attorney Reggie Tonggol, kumbaga pinakikiramdaman din daw at baka maraming oras pa raw yung kakainin kapag ipinagpatuloy today. So, pinayagan din. Kumbaga, lenient din naman daw si Presiding Officer Escudero pagdating dito. Kaya, since pinakikiramdaman pa raw nila kung paano yung presentation, yung oras na nakakain, pinayagan naman daw na next week na lang ipagpapatuloy yung presentation. Dahil natapos naman daw so far, daw hindi perfect, yung planadong witnesses for this week. Says.
Mary Mon, the prosecution is once again asking to subpoena the green box na containing the tax records of Sara and Attorney Mans Carpio, pati na ang bank records. Ano ba ang sagot ng impeachment court ukol dito?
Yun nga, Ses, kababalik lang nitong green BIR box sa BIR na still selyado pa. Pero kanina, nagkaroon na rin ng ruling ang impeachment court na una, doon sa request ng issuance ng subpoena regarding sa documents ni Attorney Manscarpio, pati ni VP Sara Duterte. In order ngayon ng presiding officer yung submission ng memorandum tungkol dyan sa Monday at yung pagsaschedule ng oral arguments on Wednesday. Ibig sabihin, yung prosecution panel at yung defense team may tig 10 minuto para ipaliwanag ang kanilang masasabi o ang kanilang opinion ukol dyan. Even ang senator judges, maaari na rin magsalita tungkol doon para maging malinaw kung sakaling ipapatawag na itong kahon, ipababalik dito, wala raw ang malalabag na batas. Okay lang daw ba ito? Lalo't ang tinitingnan dito, yung security, yung sa privacy daw ng tax records, itong BIR box, at kung walang ma-evade na batas pagdating dyan. Yung renewed request din sa issuance naman ng subpoena, pagdating doon sa bank records din, ay in order din na may oral arguments naman ito sa Monday. Still 10 minutes each naman ito. And yun na yung ilan sa mga abangan din natin next week. Ang sinabi naman ni Attorney Tonggol, magkakaroon daw ng verdict next week tungkol dito. Ses.
Thank you for your reporting, mobile journalist Mary Monreyes, still live from the Senate. And joining us in breaking down week 1 of VP Sara Duterte's trial is the Associate Dean of the UP College of Law, Paulo Tamase. Welcome back to The Big Story, Prof.
Good evening, Ses, and to everyone viewing your program.
All right, so the first salvo of the impeachment trial, how would you assess so far how it's been going on? The presiding officer, the senator judges, and prosecution and defense.
I'll give 3 brief observations starting to see in the first 3 days. The first, I think, is that the Senate has chosen really a very proceduralized form of an impeachment trial. We've invoked regularly the rules of evidence, and it's really in line with what critical scholars have observed is the over-judicialization of the process. And that might sound like not such a bad thing in the sense that we're putting everything into an orderly procedure, but we're also possibly moving away from this being a procedure of a very public character and something that people, even without legal training, would be able to understand. So you saw that yesterday in the presentation of the video, the way that it was authenticated. It took some time, around 4 hours, just to get the evidence to establish authenticity out there. And I think for considering that everyone has seen that video, the real question is really just authenticity. Is it the same video that everyone has seen, I think, in 2024? The second point, though, is that given the new presiding officer for the trial, I think if this was the choice of the Senate to have a more proceduralized system, it seems like Senator Escudero was a good choice, at least for the first 3 days. You get to see a lot of the objections or the procedural issues being ruled quickly, and he's able to take control of the proceedings, considering how hot as well both panels are for the prosecution and the defense. And finally, maybe just in relation to the Senate, it's really important for the public to have trust, a high trust in the institution, especially as it navigates this very politically contentious and yet constitutionally important task. And I have some concerns about the way that the discourse has gone in the Senate and the perceptions of impartiality. So in the public, there are observations about senators seemingly going for one or the other side, despite their multiple disclaimers that they're not really for or one side at the moment. But more than that, I think the level of civility in the Senate has gone down a bit. Maybe this is an offshoot of the last 2 difficult months for the Senate. And I think questioning each other's, attacking each other's questioning, etc. It's not new to the impeachment. We've seen that in the Estrada impeachment and the Corona impeachment. But just the level of palpable anger or disappointment, I think, is discouraging. So there's still a lot to go with the trial, 90 more days, a lot opportunities for the Senate to turn this around and to really win public trust in terms of its dealing with the impeachment trial.
You say an over-proceduralization. Isn't that good, though? If you are, as you said, an institution that needs to get back on its footing and regain public trust.
Well, there are good points and bad points. Right? Procedure historically is used really as a way to kind of neutralize the way that we argue law and fact before the court. That's why a lot of attention is paid to lawyers learning procedure in law school, even if they don't end up litigating or entering litigation. So, in the sense that it ensures that the evidence that's coming to the court is authentic, then that's a good thing. But the problem is not proceduralization. The problem is over proceduralization or over judicialization. And by that, I mean like we're dealing with every question now really as a question before a court. And we've made very early distinctions between a judicial court or a legal proceeding and impeachment, which is a sui generis proceeding. So the risk is that amid the various objections, manifestations, and the repeated exchanges between the lawyers, we're losing sight of the big picture. If you're going to social media, yeah, you're seeing the lawyers have their own fan bases. We're looking at this as a score or a fight
Right.
between
It's
the
become
lawyers.
sort of like who's ahead, who was
Yeah,
then
and
yeah.
that's not what
Okay.
impeachment is about, right? Historically, impeachment is the type where a young boy, young girl can watch the trial and understand there's something fishy with the evidence, right? Or there's something fishy with this person. So we risk alienating the public in this trial, which is really not just a conversation between the lawyers and the impeachment court, but a larger national conversation involving things that not that non-lawyers should be able to understand and access very easily.
Right. I see perhaps it's a source of being overcautious on the part of the presiding officer or the majority. But the presiding officer made a statement earlier on the manifestation of Senator Bam Aquino. He said that, the rhythm will come out after a few days. It's only been 3 days, and you think that could be the explanation because all these objections cut off the interest of everybody. It's so tedious if you're just an outsider watching, right?
Yes. And I think the fighting, even if they're not really fighting, this is how lawyers talk in court.
Yeah.
But it sounds as if they're being nitpicky about objections. It will turn off people. So there are ways to attack each other's side without using solely procedural objections. So being very conscientious, intentional with the questions you ask indirect, and asking very careful questions on cross, pointed questions on cross that don't require the overuse of objections. That's one strategy. But I also agree that it's just 3 days. So like in past impeachment trials, many of them also had this kind of start. In CJ Corona's impeachment trial, there was something similar close to this. But we're expecting to see the Senate find its footing. You're starting to see the senators become antsy and I think impatient with not being able to follow the proceeding. We have, compared to the last two Senates that have handled impeachment, the lowest number of lawyers in the Senate at this time. And therefore, a mode that is accessible to them and to the public might actually serve the truth-finding, truth-telling version of impeachment that we want to see. So my expectation is that over time, even the council will find and understand what works with the public, what doesn't work with the public, and we might well move towards that style of impeachment that we're more familiar with, which is it still looks like a legal proceeding or a court proceeding, but a lot of the questions are geared toward fact-finding and less about one man up shit, what's to the other side.
That's true. I guess the defense wanted to score points also after yesterday. But going back to the Senate impeachment court, there's a TRO that was filed by so-called allies of the VP, questioning the choice of Senator Escudero as presiding officer, citing some rules that were violated. One is the one-day rule, which I believe also led to the walkout of the once minority, now the majority, when the matter of voting was tackled. And the other was it should be the impeachment court that should make the decision and not the plenary. What are your views on these 2 points, Prof?
So without getting ahead of the Supreme Court and just giving a really objective academic
Okay.
opinion here,
All right.
on the first point, right, whether the Senate violated its own rules, if we look at past cases decided by the Supreme Court, they effectively hold that the Senate and the House is not only the master of its own rules, which means that they're granted the power to write their own rules, subject only to constitutional limits, and the court doesn't intervene in the writing of those rules. But even violations of those rules, the court is hesitant to step in. So we saw that in the 1997 case, if I remember correctly, called Arroyo versus De Venecia, where one of the questions raised was the passage of law, I think the expanded VAT law, did not follow the procedure of the House. And the court said that's a political question. That's something that we will not interfere in. So the violation of its own rules is something for the House and the Senate to police on their own and based on their members. So the court will just accept what they certify as a valid act. But on the point about the validity of the Senate appointing a different officer, I think first, the Constitution doesn't really say who should be the presiding officer in an impeachment trial that doesn't involve the president. And many, including the Senators Cayetano, have used that to argue ambiguity and therefore resort to the deliberations of the framers. But constitutional silence is not constitutional ambiguity. Constitutional silence actually allows the branch of government, in this case the Senate, to craft its own rules and navigate a political situation. So if we look at the Constitution itself, there's another textual provision there which says that the Congress shall promulgate its rules of procedure to effectively carry out or effectively implement the impeachment provisions. And if in the Senate's own view, the most effective way to implement the impeachment provisions is by getting a different presiding officer, especially given the legislative priorities that they have or any other concerns that they may have given the length of this trial, then I think our history and our practice suggests that we should respect that choice, especially if it's not prohibited by the Constitution. So I have yet to read the full petition of Dean Torion, but I think on that point alone, it might be difficult to argue and secure TRO based on a clear legal right, which is what the requirement would be. Add to that Dean Torion is not the impeachable officer. So it's very difficult for him to argue a clear legal right, respectfully, if he's not the one whose right is likely to be violated by this setup.
If ever, it should have been either of the Cayetanos, Senator Cayetanos, going to the court.
Or the vice president. So those would have been the two possibly proper parties to bring this. And I think just a quick note on the intent of the framers, that's something that we're really fond of going to, but there are issues with referring to the intent of the framers, particularly in this case. So one thing that we're all taught is that when the text of the Constitution is clear, we do not resort to the intent of the framers, because when the people voted for the Constitution in 1987, they voted for the text of the Constitution, not the intent of the framers. And second, it's difficult to derive the intent of the framers from a short 5-paragraph exchange between 2 of the 50 members of the Constitutional Commission. So to extend that to basically the intent, considering that the proposed amendment to clarify the Senate President being the presiding officer was itself withdrawn by the proponent, it might be overstretching what that short passage from the deliberations actually mean.
So Senator Tito Soto's short comment was correct to say those excerpts are just good for research.
Yes, the research resources, I think what he's using, and I think many people, laughed at that, but they're actually exactly that. But they're what lawyers would call in legal research secondary references or secondary sources.
Okay.
It means that if your primary source, the constitutional text, suggests otherwise, there's no reason really to go to the secondary reference.
I didn't know that statement was laughed at?
No, I mean, I think in public, right? And I think in the Senate floor as well, because I was watching it. It was such a short comment to a long explanation, right? But it was really good. I think in
Succinct.
terms of trying,
When you
yes,
think
in terms
about
of
it.
trying to show, that why are we fighting over the intent of the framers when the text is clear?
Yeah.
So and I think it's a good illustration of how the process isn't monopolized by lawyers. In social media, there's often attacks on the senators who do not have legal training. They're as much a part of the process as every Filipino is in this case. So this is a good illustration of how the Constitution is a people's document and everyone has a right to interpret it.
I want to go to that before we go to another matter that will be brought to the Supreme Court. Because Senator Risa Ontiveros was, I don't know if she was warned, if that was a warning or called out again by the presiding officer, when she asked the defense, why did you present, what was the motive in presenting the video of the then Chief of Staff of the Vice President? Was that a leading question? Was that a question that, because as a viewer, you would also want, what's the relevance of this? Does it mean that this is the context of why she made the threats? Is that a wrong question? Is that a leading question or a question that's not, that will go into the merits of the case, or? Prof?
Goes to the
Meat?
I think that I think it goes to the problem with the over judicialization of the process. I think it's a fair question to ask for somebody who really isn't trained about questions you should and should not ask in court. But that said, there's some discipline that's needed on the part of the lawyers as well to not use that as an opportunity to frame the case unjustly. So there's a lot of self-restraint that's needed. Now, on the point of the judge asking her this, we have to remember that Senator Hontiveros and any of the 21 senators are as much a judge as Senator Escudero is.
Correct.
And one thing we learn in trial is that you cannot object to a judge's question. You have to answer it. Objections are proper for counsel's question, and you can file an ethical complaint if the judge is too involved in the case in a legal proceeding, but this is a political proceeding. And I think that question, whether we liked it or not, trying to simplify for the normal person, the ordinary Filipino, what the evidence means. So it's fair to ask for the prosecution as much as it is fair to ask for the defense.
Yeah.
Right? All of that said, you've seen innovations in this impeachment, departures from strict legal process as it should, where, for example, the prosecution and the defense were given time to basically frame the case. Normally, you wouldn't see that in court. No, you're not, as the lawyer, you're not allowed to testify basically on what's going to be presented. And therefore, there might be a more orderly way and less controversial way of doing this, just thinking right now, that, that standard process of allowing the lawyers to explain what the relevance of this evidence is might be a good compromise, instead of the senators having to ask that question. And in any event, if I can just add,
of course,
respectfully, there's a way to call out a senator properly without embarrassing a fellow member, or without making too big of a fuss about what was answered or what was asked. And I think the people who already are suspicious of the Senate, are concerned about the polarization and the division in the Senate, are better served if the senators are able to discuss this more freely in caucus, as they used to in the impeachments of CJ Corona in particular. So there were multiple caucuses in that impeachment where many of these issues or disagreements, I think, were settled.
Right, because even the Senate, you can say, is on trial here.
Yes, the Senate is itself, the way that it acts and treats this case fairly is it's on trial. And you don't want to see the Senate as partisan or divided on really a supposedly neutral question on whether this public officer has violated all of these provisions of the Constitution and therefore merits the public trust.
I have so many more questions to ask, but we've run out of time. But so far, would you say it's not off to a bad start? I mean, it's fair.
The most important thing was that it finally started.
Right.
So we're supposed to look at the evidence. We're supposed to focus on that. We're not supposed to focus on the fights between the lawyers, real or imagined. So it's a good start. And I think that as the trial goes on in the next few weeks, the Senate itself confident that the Senate itself will find its own footing, the balance between politics and law, or strict procedure, and really the truth-finding aspect of impeachment. So it's incumbent, it's our duty as normal citizens to watch this carefully, as much as we can, as much as our attention spans allow us.
So from Monday to Wednesday, every afternoon, does time stop for everybody there at the UP College of Law?
Sort of. We also have students helping us out with this. And I think the objective is, we understand that it's hard to digest the legal information. So what we're trying to do here is we're finding ways to try to present this to the public in an easier, neutral way so that everyone can get the information that they need throughout the trial.
And we appreciate you for that. Thank you very much for talking to us here on The Big Story, Professor Paulo Tamase of the UP College of Law. And time now to take a quick break. Next are the big stories from Malacanang, including a new addition to the Marcos cabinet. Stay tuned.
Let's give each other leeway, but only to the point that the trial will not disintegrate, di ba, into a political fiasco or circus.
Why are we being strict about the rules? Why do I have to bother standing up? Well, because nothing in this world will run well without the rules. But that's why we have to stand up and call the attention of the presiding officer when we feel that the rules are being violated. And we will continue to do so when we believe it is necessary in the interests of justice. If it's possible, Mr. President, if our secretariat can install a monitor here, because magkaka-stiff neck na po ako watching this. And it really doesn't look nice that I'm slouched there looking this way. So, and then this one here is a little bit, not for videos, but for the copies of affidavit, it's quite difficult. So if they can put one here, the others want another, but I can speak for those in the front row we would like to request. Thank you.
Siblings Alan and Pia Cayetano there calling out some issues in the impeachment court, from rules to statements being uttered in the Duterte trial to ensuring the comfort of senator judges. The Cayetanos were the more vocal ones among lawmakers present in today's proceedings. Now, day 3 of the Duterte impeachment trial saw the defense take its turn in questioning the prosecution's first witness, but not without objections. And for the details, we go live to mobile journalist Arles de los Santos from the Senate. Arles, ano ang mga pangunahing issue na lumutang sa cross-examination ng depensa kanina?
Kung kahapon ang nagpaulan ng sunod-sunod objection ay ang depensa. Ngayong araw naman, ang prosekusyon ang sunod-sunod na tumutol sa mga tanong ng depensa doon sa testigo sa ikatlong araw ng impeachment trial ni Vice President Sara Duterte. Uminog ang pagtatanong ni Atty. Carlos Narvasa mula sa depensa sa kredibilidad ni NBI agent John Mark Calilong gaya ng mga training nito sa digital forensics, kung paano nito inauthenticate ang video na naglalaman ng ebidensya ng umano'y grave threats ni Vice President Sara Duterte kay Pangulong Bongbong Marcos, First Lady Liza Marcos, maging kay dating House Speaker Martin Romualdez. Unang iprinesenta sa SESNO ang ilang dokumento ng Max Corp Interventure kung saan kinuha umano ni Kalilong ang photo and video authentication training sa loob ng 2 linggo. Sa kanyang binasang dokumento, SES, ay sinabi ni Narvasa na ang primary purpose ng Max Corp ay sa import at export goods, wholesale at retails. Base sa pagtatanong ng Depensa SES ay tila lumabas na mula sa pagiging expert ay naging experience ang karanasan ng testigong si Kalilong sa pag-authenticate ng video. SES.
Arles, ano pang anggulo ang tinumbok ng Depensa dito naman sa alegasyon ng pagbabanta ni VP Sara sa buhay ng Pangulo?
SES, tinumbok ng Depensa ang posisyon nitong walang ibang sapat at kapanipaniwalang ebidensya ang prosekusyon upang patunayan ang paratang na si VP Sara ay kumontrata umano ng isang mamamatay tao o assassin para nga sa grave threats ito kay Pangulong Bongbong Marcos at sa pamilya nito. Dagdag pa nila SES ang testimonya ni Kalilong tulad ng iba pang ebidensya na iniharap ng prosekusyon ay hindi sapat upang mapatunayan ito at pag-aaksaya lamang daw ito ng pera ng taong bayan maging ng oras ng impeachment court para nga sa pagnanais umano ng prosekusyon na buuin ang naratibo na nag-hire nga si Vice President Sara Duterte ng umano'y assassin. Mismong si VP Sara na rin daw ang nagsabi na hindi siya nagsalita tungkol sa isang assassin. Galing lang daw ito doon sa mga taong nag-alis ng tamang konteksto doon sa kanyang pahayag at in-exaggerate lamang umano ang tunay nitong kahulugan. Narito at pakinggan natin ang pahayag ni Attorney Mark Vinluan mula sa Depensa.
The truth of the matter is this. She and her family were threatened. And while her response was unconventional, it was justified. What triggered her response was a question about Operation Romanov, which is the plot to eliminate VP Sara and her entire family. The NBI's own records prove this.
Bukod sa mga dokumento, Arles, ano pa ba ang ipinakita ng Depensa sa impeachment court kanina?
SES, inasahan natin kanina na ipe-play yung 2 oras at mahigit na press conference ni Vice President Sara Duterte via online noong November 2024. Pero ang nangyari, para umano mabigyan ng konteksto kung paano nga ba nasabi ni Vice President Sara Duterte ang alegasyon ng grave threats, ay nag-play na lamang ng ilang bahagi ng press conference na iyon kung saan nga doon ay ipinakita ang mga umano'y pahayag ni OVP Chief of Staff Zuleika Lopez para bigyang konteksto ang pangyayari noon. Ipinesenta rin SES ang ilang mga papeles mula sa Department of Justice noong January 2025 na nagsasabing kulang pa o hindi pa umano sapat para sa preliminary investigation ang reklamong grave threats laban kay Vice President Sara Duterte. Kaparehas noong papel na inilabas noong February 5 kung saan naman may kulang pa raw. Kanina narinig natin 7 raw na impormasyon at requirement yung DOJ. Pero pagdating ng February 12 ay naging sufficient na nga ito at inihain na daw ang reklamong grave threats. Ang mga papeles na ito, SES, ay inalmahan ng prosekusyon dahil anila ay hindi daw ito na pre-mark noong pre-trial conference at wala raw silang mga kopya nito. Maging ilang beses ngang tumutol si Attorney Ligutan mula sa prosekusyon na tila may ilan daw na hindi sapat or tama yung anggulo ng pagtatanong ng Depensa, pero later on ay na-overrule yan at nagtuloy-tuloy pa rin. At sabi naman, assess doon sa tanong ng Depensa kung naghain ba ng individual affidavit si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos, First Lady Liza at Romualdez ng kanilang individual affidavit para sa reklamong grave threats ay wala raw personal na kaalaman si Kalilong dyan. Pero iginiit niya na motu proprio o kanilang sariling inisyatiba ang pag-iimbestiga dito na kanilang gagawin daw kung may tangkaman sa buhay ng Pangulo, Vice Presidente, Senate President, House Speaker at maging ng Chief Justice. SES.
Ano naman ang aasahan mula sa defense team sa pagpapatuloy ng impeachment trial sa susunod na linggo?
Says ang aabangan siguro ay kung sasamahan ba muli ni Vice President Sara Duterte si Attorney Zuleika Lopez kung humarap man ito sa impeachment trial ng Senado sa susunod na linggo. Dahil ipinatawag nga ito ng prosekusyon bilang kanilang testigo. Inaasahan na sasalang si Zuleika Lopez sa pagtatanong ng prosekusyon maging ng depensa. At syempre, ang isa pang opisyal ng NBI na si Lotok na meron daw investigasyon na isinagawa para nga tukuyin kung totoo bang may hinire umano na assassin si Vice President Sara Duterte kaugnay ng Article 4 of impeachment ni Vice President Sara Duterte.
All right, thank you for your report, mobile journalist Arles de los Santos. Then we check the prosecution and its assessment of the first week of the impeachment trial. And for that, we go to mobile journalist Amy Atienza. Go ahead, Amy.
Yes, sis. Sabi nga ng House Prosecution Panel, it was a good week for the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte dahil kung babalikan lang din natin yung nangyaring na nung mga nakaraang araw at ngayong araw ay nakita naman daw at naipresenta ng maayos ng prosecution yung mga ebidensya na kalakip nga nitong Article number 4 o yung assassination plot, grave threats, and inciting to the sedition of Vice President Sara Duterte against the government. Bukod pa dyan, naniniwala sila na yung naging witness nila na si John Mark Calilong na isang NBI senior agent ng Cybercrime Division Team ay nakapagbigay ng sufficient information at mayroong consistent narrative pagdating doon sa pagtatanong ng prosecution and the defense sa kanyang examination and cross-examination dito sa trial. Yun din daw ang nagpapatunay na talagang tama yung mga sinasabi ng witness nila pagdating dito sa grave threats. Bukod pa dyan, medyo nasurpresa yung prosecution team pagdating nga doon sa pagpapresenta ng video clips ni Attorney Zuleika Lopez na siyang Chief of Staff ng Office of the Vice President. Pero naniniwala sila na naging malaking tulong pa ito para nga ma-justify na relevant witness si Attorney Lopez pagdating sa impeachment trial na ito. Dahil inaasahan din na by next week ay mai-summon nga itong si Attorney Lopez para mas ma-discuss or magkaroon ng kanyang testigo pagdating nga dito sa grave threats na ibinigay ni VP Sara kay Pangulong Bongbong Marcos, First Lady Liza Marcos at former House Speaker Martin Romualdez. Ihintayin pa natin kung ano pa nga ba yung
We thank you for your update, mobile journalist Amy Atienza there. Now, this is a big story on One News. We check the track of Inday. How much wind and rain is this super typhoon packing? The details after the break. Welcome back to the big story. President Bongbong Marcos has welcomed a new addition to his team. That story and more from mobile journalist Julie Baiza.
Minsan na po siya natanong kung magiging parte ng kabinete niya si dating DILG Secretary Benjamin Abalos Jr. At sinabi lang po niya na nais naman niya makatrabaho muli ang dating DILG Secretary. At ito na po ang tugon. Sa maraming katanungan ko siya ay masasaling muli sa kabinete.
This was Palace Press Officer Ter Castro's explanation as she announced the appointment of Benher Abalos as the new Cabinet Secretary. Abalos will lead the Cabinet Secretariat, the key coordinating office within the executive branch of the government.
Okay, ang kanya po magiging responsibilidad, ilan lamang po ito sa aking babanggitin. Number 1, assist the President by providing timely, relevant, and strategic advice on emerging national, local, and international issues affecting the political landscape. Number 3, as may be directed by the President, serve as a conduit of the President to national government agencies, local government units, political organizations, groups or parties, civil society organizations, and sectoral groups on matters of political concern. and also serve as head of strategic action and response office, and for this purpose exercise supervision and control over its constituent offices.
The last position Abalos held was DILG chief from 2022 to 2024. He resigned in October 2024 to run for senator under the banner of President Marcos's Alianza para sa Bagong Pilipinas. Abalos lost, placing 16th in the race. Meantime, Castro Bimbas assured reporters the alleged source of Vice President Sara Duterte's infamous statement yesterday, a line from William Ernest Henley's Invictus. But as to whether there is indeed bloodbath and bludgeoning,
katulad na sa sinabi sa Invictus, kung yun po ang kanyang iniisip at kanyang opinyon, ay hindi naman natin siya mapapahinto sa kanyang pagsasalita patungkol dito. At magiging madugo talaga to kung hindi makikita ng taong bayan ang katotohanan.
Castro also took a dig at Senator Pia Cayetano, who said Pala seems to be very supportive of Senate majority.
Kamusta na po ba, Senator Pia Cayetano? Dahil sa tuwing nagsasalita siya very recently, ay lagi siyang parang hinihingal. At di natin alam kung excitement, anxiety, pero siguro napansin niyo rin na medyo hingal na hingal si Senator Pia sa kanyang pananalita. So di naman po niya susuportahan ang desisyon ng majority kung ito ay mayroong pag-uutos para sa isang lock and load order, ang pag-ayon sa pagpapaputok ng isang General Aplaska, at hindi rin naman po siya sasang-ayon sa isang pagpapatakas sa katulad po ni Senator Bato.
On Wednesday morning, President Marcos led the national kick-off of a school-based feeding program in Pulilan, Bulacan. For now, all Marcos assures his kids of poor families will be helped by the administration's feeding program in public schools.
Kung minsan, ang nagiging dahilan kung bakit hindi makapag-aral na mabuti yung mga kabataan ay kulang sa pagkain. At kaya tinanggal na natin yung problema na yan para tiyak tayo na lahat ng mga pumapasok na nag-aaral ay hindi na kailangan alalahanin ang kanilang kakainin, hindi na alalahanin ang kanilang mga pamilya, ang pamahalaan na ang tutulong at ang pamahalaan na ang magpapakain.
The chief executive also announced a possible wage hike for workers in the regions beginning September. But on the unemployment rate, which increased by 0.1% in May compared to 4.7% in April,
Ito po naman ay talagang inasahan dahil nga po naging reason ang global oil crisis. Kahit po sa parte ng agrikultura, kaya nga po tuloy-tuloy ang pagtulong at pagbibigay ng ayuda sa ating mga kababayan.
Kapatid Mobile Journal Julie Baiza, We're One News.
Senator Rodante Marcoleta remains confined at the PNP General Hospital 2 days after his arrest on plunder charges. Doctors are closely monitoring the 72-year-old due to multiple medical conditions. Cervical spine X-ray results reveal Marcoleta has degenerative disc disease. Medical evaluations also show the lawmaker is suffering from mild pneumonia and cardiomegaly, or an enlarged heart. His blood pressure recently spiked to 160/90. Hospital officials confirm Marcoleta is clinically stable but requires further testing and rehabilitation.
Minimum po siguro 6 sessions, pero hindi ko lang po alam kasi ngayon po ni-refer ko na po siya sa rehab doctor po namin.
Pero dito lang lahat yan?
Yes sir, dito lang po. Dito lang lahat. May rehab medicine po kami.
Hindi niyo po siya i-clear hanggang hindi po matapos itong mga procedures na ito?
Yes, of course. Kailangan ko pong maging, tawag dito, kailangan makita lahat. Maging tama yung diagnosis namin, yung evaluation namin sa kanya bago namin siya pakawalan. Pakawalan no, parang bago namin siya i-transfer.
Despite his condition, police have already processed Senator Marcoleta's return of arrest warrant. A commitment order has been issued to jail him at the new Quezon City Jail male dormitory in Payatas. His 3 co-accused, including former Congressman Mike Defensor, are already detained at the facility. Meanwhile, the Sandigan Bayan 6th Division is seeking to merge a separate case against Marcoleta and businessman Joseph Espiritu. That case involves the alleged violation of Presidential Decree number 46, which prohibits public officials from receiving gifts. As for the 4th Division, it has issued another whole departure order and arrest warrant against Marcoleta and Defensor. This is over gift-giving violations under Presidential Decree number 46, separate from the non-bailable charge for plunder in the 3rd Division. And now let's go to the weather. Super Typhoon Inday maintains its strength as it moves westward over the Philippine Sea east of northern Luzon. And for the latest, we're joined by News 5 weather frontliner Alvin Pura. Alvin, how powerful is Super Typhoon Inday at ano yung mga lugar na unang makakaramdam ng bagsik ni Inday?
Yes, itong si Super Typhoon Inday ay nakapasok sa ating area of responsibility kaninang madaling araw at ngayon nga is nasa Super Typhoon category pa din doon na may taglay na lakas na hangin na nasa 195 kilometers per hour malapit sa kanyang gitna at kung minsan may mga pagbugso ng umabot sa 240 kilometers. Ito naman ay hindi natin inaasa mag-landfall or tumama sa lupa pero yan po ay kikilos, pakanluran, bukas maghihilagang kanluran na yan or northwestward patungo dito sa may area ng Taiwan. Sa ngayon, wala pa yung direktang epekto sa atin pero may lawak po yan na nasa 1,000, around 1,800 or 1,700 kilometers na diametro o kabuang diametro. Kaya yung kanyang wind field ay sasabit sa Northern Luzon at extreme Northern Luzon. So mararamdaman po natin yung kanyang panglabas na hangin at panglabas na kaulapan dito po sa hilagang bahagi ng Luzon as early as tomorrow afternoon hanggang evening at mas madadagdagan pa ang epekto niyan by Friday dito nga sa Northern Luzon at extreme Northern Luzon. So possible dyan yung ating mga gusty winds, gusty conditions at meron din tayong mga possible na malalakas na pag-ulan dahil sa direct effect netong si Inday. At may mga areas na po dyan na nakataas ang tropical cyclone wind signals ang Pag-asa at mas madadagdagan pa yan bukas. Aside from that, meron din tayong enhancement o pagpapalakas ng ating habagat na siya pong magpapaulan dito naman sa western section ng ating bansa habang kumikilos paitaas itong bagyong Inday. Sis?
Alvin, pakipaliwanag kung paano na-enhance ang habagat o southwest monsoon ng bagyong ito.
Alright. Etong si Inday, kung mapapansin nyo dito sa ating satellite image is nandito sa East Philippine Sea at hindi nga yan nagla-landfall or tumatama sa lupa. Pero yung kanyang inflow ng hangin ay nagmumula dito sa ibaba. Ito na yung ating habagat o southwest monsoon. At kung mapapansin nyo, meron na tayong mga overcast conditions sa Zamboanga Peninsula, western section ng Mindanao, BARMM, kasama dyan ang areas ng Soxargen area, western Visayas, meron na rin tayong mga possible chances of rain dyan ngayon hanggang bukas, and then mas madadagdagan pa yan by Thursday hanggang Friday. Yung ating peak ng pinakamaraming pag-ulan dito sa Luzon ay mula Friday at magpapatuloy hanggang weekend. Yan ay sa areas ng Mimaropa, lalong-lalo na sa Mindoro, Metro Manila, kasama po dyan, Cavite at Batangas, Zambales at Bataan, and mga kabundukan dito sa Cordillera, including Baguio City at itong Ilocos region. So bakit nangyayari yan? Dahil yung ating flow ng hangin ay nagmumula po dito sa ibaba patungo dun sa direksyon ng ating bagyo. So meron tayong flow ng hangin na kahit hindi tumatama sa atin yung bagyo, tumatawid po yung ating hangin dito. Yung hangin na yan ay habagat, punong-puno ng moisture at warm, which is conducive or favorable sa pagbuo ng ating mga kaulapan at mga thunderstorms. So meron tayong mga periods of intermittent rains coming this Friday at magkakaroon din tayo ng multiple days na maulan dito nga sa Metro Manila and sa mga areas na karating lugar nito. Generally, meron tayong area dito na kapag tumatambay o dumadaan dyan yung ating bagyo, nagkakaroon tayo ng flow na tumatawid dito sa Metro Manila and some parts ng Luzon na kung saan yan po yung ating enhancement ng habagat na magpapaulan sa atin in the next few days, lalong-lalo na sa weekend. Yes?
Okay. So itong weekend maulan, pero maulan lang, hindi mahangin, hindi malakas na hangin.
Yes, napakalaki ng bagyo na ito. So yung ating hangin, narito naman yung ating pressure gradient map na makikita. So ito. Ang ibig sabihin niyang pressure gradient is difference ng pressure natin. So yung mas maliliit na pagkakaiba o yung mas dikit-dikit na line, yan yung ating mas malalakas na hangin. Kung mapapansin nyo dito, yung ating concentration ng malalakas na pahangin at mga pagulan ay malapit dun sa mismong bagyo. Pero kung ipo-project natin, etong radius o yung kabuuang lawak ng ating bagyo na nasa 1,700 nga is, kung ganito kalawak yung radius ng bagyo natin, is sasabit at sasabit yan dito sa northern part ng Luzon at extreme northern Luzon. At kung mapapansin nyo, dito naman sa baba, nag-extend pa hanggang Mindanao. Meron ding magkakalapit na hangin dyan. Although hindi kasing lapit ng mga nandito sa malapit sa gitna, is ito yung ating flow ng habagat. May hangin din po dyan. Meron tayong breezy up to gusty o mga pabugso-bugsong hangin na dulot ng habagat, which is mararamdaman away from the bagyo, extending up to dito sa areas ng Mindanao. Although hindi kasing lakas nga ng hangin, may mga chances din na mapanganib yan. Like pwede yan magpabuwal ng mga lumang puno, magpabuwal ng mga sanga, and pwede rin po yan magpabuwal ng mga light materials ng mga bahay. So, meron pa rin tayong kailangan pag-ingatan doon sa hangin na habagat na mararamdaman natin sa malaking bahagi ng ating bansa. Yes?
Okay, maraming salamat, Alvin. Kailangan po nating mag-ingat kahit hindi magla-landfall, si Inday ay makakadulot ng maraming ulan. Thank you for that report, Alvin Pura, ang ating weather specialist. And those are the big stories this midweek. I'm Ces Orenia Drilon. Kapatid, we are One News, your side all the time. Have a good night.